You know, the Assassin's Creed franchise, despite only being about 15 years old, has seen over 30 unique entries in the series across 22 different gaming platforms. There's been a big budget movie based on the franchise, there's been books, comic books, animations, board games, official audio dramas, and really that's how you know you've made it. I remember playing Assassin's Creed for the first time and being blown away by the parkour, the visuals, the gameplay, the story, the parallel story between Desmond and Altair. It was really like next level stuff for a small-brained child in 2007. You could complete missions in a multitude of ways. You could sneak through a crowd of people, walk up on someone and just stab them in the middle of everybody. You could sneak along rooftops and drop on them like a sack of potatoes with a knife sticking out of it. I also watched a lot of Linkin Park AMVs of Assassin's Creed where people would just take like really low res footage of the intro from the game and splice it in with their own awful gameplay with, you know, in the end blaring in the background. And you know what? I wish we could go back to that time. However, I stopped caring about Assassin's Creed after Black Flag because either the games coming out didn't really interest me or didn't look like an Assassin's Creed game in the first place. I was reminiscing about Assassin's Creed the other day, and that's how I came up with the idea for this video format. See, what I'm going to be doing is looking at the first game in a series and the latest game in a series and comparing and contrasting them, seeing how this series has evolved or maybe gotten worse, seeing how the story has changed or if it's stuck to its roots. Keep in mind this isn't a retrospective on the Assassin's Creed series as a whole, it's just a comparison from Assassin's Creed 1 to Assassin's Creed Valhalla. To be completely transparent, here are all the Assassin's Creed games that I have played. The last one that I played was Black Flag back in 2014, which was 2014 was 8 years ago, and I'm gonna be sick. Put me back in the Animus. All right, let's get a grip. Kind of like this. And let's talk about what made Assassin's Creed so special when it smashed headfirst into every edgy kid's Xbox 360 and PS3 back in 2007. Now, stealth games weren't anything new in 2007. Metal Gear Solid, Hitman, Splinter Cell, I forgot what it was called. They were the kings at the time and they were already running the show. See, what made Assassin's Creed so interesting was the concept of how it told the story. You play as Altair, an assassin in 1191 during the Third Crusade, but really you're playing as Desmond, a bartender from 2012 who is kidnapped by the Abstergo pharmaceutical company and forced to interface with their Animus device, which lets you play and interact with the memories of your ancestors. Does that sound like it makes any sense? No?
Who cares?
Now you might be wondering why a pharmaceutical company wants you to fiddle around as some dude in the 1100s, but it becomes pretty clear pretty quickly. You see, what they want is this thing. It's the Apple of Eden. It's the magical MacGuffin of Assassin's Creed, or one of them. You can call it a Chaos Emerald if you want. I really don't care. It grants the user godlike powers and the ability to control others with only their mind. Not only that, but it also tells you the location of the other pieces of Eden, so other artifacts similar to it that do other things. It's just like the glasses from the first Michael Bay Transformers movie, except instead of telling you where Megatron is, it doesn't do that.
Where is the cube?
Now, of course, Desmond's story would evolve and change over the next few games, but in the first game, his story is pretty basic. You really just kind of wander around a couple rooms when you're not in the Animus, and you learn more about Abstergo. Spoilers, they're part of the Templars. Oh, who saw that coming? Really, I'm not going to bother with spoiler warnings for Assassin's Creed 1, because if you were born when this game came out, or prior, I'm pretty sure you qualify for Social Security at this point. Altair's story, on the other hand, is one that I actually really enjoy. See, at the beginning of the game, he's cocky and arrogant, and he thinks he can just waltz in and kill the main antagonist of the game without breaking a sweat. Of course, that's not what happens. You mess up and you get one of your guys killed because you suck. You really suck. And because of that, the village that the Order of Assassins reside in is attacked by Robert de Sable, the antagonist that I mentioned before. You manage to drive him back by the skin of your teeth, but you're then stripped of your rank and stabbed Or maybe not stabbed, I'm not sure. They kind of made it seem like, oh, I just made you think I stabbed you. Dude, either you stabbed me or you didn't. You're stripped of your rank and you have to do a bunch of missions to earn your rank back and get all your equipment back, and it's actually very similar to Metroid games, where you start with a bunch of your abilities and then something happens to Samus and she loses a bunch of her stuff and then you have to get it back. To get your stuff back, you have to assassinate the targets that your leader Al-Mualim gives you. Gameplay loop kind of goes like this. He tells you what city they're in, you travel to that city, you shake a few trees and learn some stuff about the target, and then you go to them and kill them. Rinse and repeat 9 times. Now every mission doesn't go exactly the same way. You get tricked a couple times and then you gotta chase them down and kill them. Some of them are just beating the shit out of some dude in the town square, thankfully leaving themselves wide open to be stabbed in the back of the neck. And you only really get to know these targets for, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes in some little cutscene before you kill them. And I gotta say, for the short amount of time that they give you with each of these guys, they are just the absolute salt of the earth. You can't wait to drive 5 inches of cold steel into these dudes' brain stems because, oh man, do they deserve it. As you assassinate these targets though, you slowly learn that Al-Mualim is pulling all the strings behind the scenes, and he's actually using you to weaken the Templars while also selling out the other assassins to the Templars to weaken both sides so that he will just be all-powerful and godlike with the Apple of Eden and live forever or whatever because he's afraid of dying because he's old. Altair learns all this and he says,
No.
He storms the castle, you fight Al-Mualim, you kill him, and then you try to destroy the Apple of Eden, but instead of destroying it, you learn the locations of the other pieces of Eden. Altair takes over as leader of the assassins, he guards the apple, endgame. You see, what makes this story good in comparison to Valhalla is the overarching story of the assassins, the Templars, the apple, and all that is interwoven neatly with Altair's quest to basically, become a better person and be more responsible and be a leader instead of some cocky young assassin. Those two stories start separately and then they weave together and it all makes sense and it flows nicely. The voice acting in this game from 2007 is kind of hit or miss. Altair's voice actor sounds like he's asleep a lot of the time, but most of the other characters actually sound really good.
What will I do with you?
Let me go.
The one complaint I have is a lot of the NPCs' voice lines, for whatever reason, sound like they were recorded on one of those, recorders from Ghost Adventures that sound awful on purpose. Not sure why, but it's kind of funny. One aspect of the storytelling that I really like in this game is that the control is almost never taken away from you, even when a cutscene is going on. You can still walk around, you can change camera angles. It's not like taken away from you. There's no fade to black and then pre-rendered cutscene or anything like that. It feels very fluid. The gameplay and the story bits, they go together nicely. Like I said before, it all flows together nicely, especially for the first game in the series. Is there anything inherently wrong with structured cutscenes that you don't have control over? No, because that's what most video games do. But you'll see with Valhalla, it can also suck. The gameplay for Assassin's Creed 1 I think could be considered a bit controversial because it started a trend in certain games like Arkham Asylum and a lot of these earlier Assassin's Creed games where most fights devolve into holding down right trigger, waiting for someone to swing, and countering their attack to kill them instantly. Now while that can get repetitive, if you get a good kill chain going on, you can wipe out a group of 4 to 5 guards in a few seconds, and it's pretty satisfying, honestly, because you feel like an assassin. Like the title. Altair controls fairly satisfyingly, if I do say so myself. Even though the dude runs around and swings and flips like a ballerina, he's got weight to him. When you're running around, if you accidentally bump into someone going too fast, you'll trip and fall. Like a person. Is this game a one-to-one perfect realistic parkour simulator? No, but for the time, I think they got a lot, and I mean a lot of things right. Now, does this game have its problems? Oh, yeah, it does. The whole hub world, the big open fields that you have to gallop through to get to the other cities, that could just be removed. Straight up, just take that out of the game, walk to the edge of a city, and pick a town to teleport to. Would be so much better. Because that way, you would still have to evade the authorities to leave the town, but you wouldn't have to waste 5 to 10 minutes just galloping from town to town. At first, this isn't a problem, but once you really get into the meat of the game and you've got to travel between towns back and forth over and over again, man, that field sucks. I hate it. I hate the hub world in this game. It's awful. The collectibles are a point of contention as well. There's like 100 of these little flags that you can pick up per city. I think that horse has been beaten to death about 27,000 times over, because this game came out a long time ago. But I don't really think it takes anything away from the game. I do consider it a missed opportunity though, for something more meaningful. The visual style of the game is extremely moody, and a lot of the colors that are used are kind of drab in a way. Each major city has its own atmosphere, and their skylines are draped in a specific color. Like if you go to the town of Aker, it's always green. The whole city is just green. It's got like a green fog over it. Is this a technical limitation of the hardware at the time? Yes, that's absolutely what it is. Does it still look cool? Yep, the game is moody and edgy, and that's me in a nutshell. I'm not really a music nerd or anything, but the music in this game is pretty good. Specifically when you get in a big chase, it's kind of like this weird mixture of edgy late 2000s rock with traditional music that's era appropriate. It's pretty cool. If I could wrap Assassin's Creed 1 up in a neat little package, I would say it's a fun, action-adventure stealth game. Altair and Desmond are both really good, likable main characters. Altair in particular goes from a snotty, prideful dick to someone who experiences humiliation and loss and learns from all of it and becomes a better person for it. The gameplay loop, while repetitive, doesn't explicitly feel like it's wasting a ton of your time like Valhalla does. We'll get to that. You don't have to do too many missions to learn about your target to assassinate them. You only have to do like 2 or 3 per city. So even though there's like 10 side quests, you don't have to do all of them. Not at all. The look and feel of the game is very unique and stylish, and this isn't just nostalgia talking. I went back and I played it specifically for this video, okay? So this isn't nostalgia glasses are off. I just played it and I enjoyed it. The padded parts of the game are annoying, and some of the voice performances, like I said, are pretty hit or miss, but really, I wasn't frustrated very often with this game, or if I was, it only lasted maybe 5 or 10 minutes and then I was on to something exciting or fun again. The game, on average, takes about 15 hours to finish, which was actually a little bit more than it took me. Yeah, some of the fat could be trimmed, but hey, at least 70% of this game isn't the fat, like another game. Okay. This is going to be a long video. Now I have to talk about Valhalla. I don't want to. Okay, so now we fast forward like 14 years and 87 Assassin's Creed games into the future, and we reach Assassin's Creed Valhalla. The formula for this series has changed almost entirely. They don't really resemble the games that they once were. The last 3 games have had a much heavier focus on melee combat instead of stealth and assassinations. It's very Destiny-esque with the equipment that you find, and you level it up and you watch the damage numbers go up. It's more of a numbers game now. From what I can see, Odyssey was especially like that, and Valhalla is to a lesser extent, but still similar. See, in Odyssey, you could get weapon drops from enemies, chests, all different kinds of places, so every time you'd finish a mission, you'd have 17 swords that you didn't want and 8 new pairs of gloves that you just were gonna salvage for scrap anyway. In Valhalla, there's a set number of weapons that you find in the game. Enemies don't just drop them. It's not like that. The items are limited. You see, now if you want all the cool equipment, well, you just have to spend real money on all of it. And I mean all of it. There are hundreds of dollars of microtransactions in this game for a single-player AAA game that already costs between $60 and $110, depending on what edition you get, and yet you've still got to pay $20 for these packs of armor and weapons. Each. I loosely counted it up, and I think there was about $300 worth of microtransactions in this game. Granted, like, yeah, you keep it once you have it, but it's a single-player game. Why not just have these things be in the game? To play the game, I got a little Ubisoft Plus account so that I wouldn't have to outright buy the game, and by having Ubisoft Plus, you get the Ultimate Edition of the game. And normally I think it's about $110 or $120. You don't get shit for getting the Ultimate Edition. Nothing really that useful. And a lot of the stuff that you can buy with real money isn't even as good stat-wise as other stuff that you can get in the game. Like, I know that Ubisoft is not ashamed of this in the slightest because they want to put NFTs in their games. So like, they're not learning. This isn't a new thing. It's pretty shitty though, especially going from Assassin's Creed 1 where it all started to this bloated, money-grubbing monstrosity that is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's insane. Dude, even EA gives away most of their DLC for free these days. EA! Oh, one of the things that they did give me for free was an Ubisoft tattoo that I could put on my character. You can really tell how much Ubisoft loves themselves and think they're so smart when the free stuff that they give you is this. Don't buy these. If you have the game already, please don't buy these. Don't give into this crap. This is bullshit. And if you don't have the game, spoilers for the review later, don't buy it. Alright, enough bitching. Let's talk about Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I'm gonna bitch more. You play as Eivor, a Viking who is about as interesting as his Sons of Anarchy haircut. Seriously, I don't really know what it is, but even though we see this character's parents brutally murdered in front of him as a child in the first, 15 minutes of the game, I don't care about Eivor. I can't get behind him or her. I just don't care. I think a big reason for that is that the main antagonist that you get from, the guy who kills your parents, you kill him like an hour and a half into the game. Your main revenge story ends in the prologue, before the prologue is even over. Like, this guy is the most evil, dastardly, almost comically evil dude in this game, and he's great. I wish he was in the game more, but nope. Had to kill him. After that I was thinking, okay, alright, so they must find a really bad guy to fill his shoes, right? You should be chasing this dude down to the ends of the earth. Shaking down his generals, going on a bloody, brutal Viking revenge quest. That should be the game. But instead, we got Viking politics simulator, and then some weird sci-fi shit thrown in. I have never skipped so many cutscenes and lines of dialogue in a single game as I have with this one. Hello, Randy.
Sigurd has raised the reputation of this club.
Every conversation you have with every character is so stale and stagnant and boring. You meet characters and then 10 minutes after you meet them, you never see them again. But the game does this over and over and over in every new area that you go to. It's supposed to be building this like network of, brothers and sister Vikings, and it just falls totally flat. The flow of the game after you get past the prologue and the intro and everything is, okay, you're in England now, you've got your base of operations, here's a map, here's all the different shires around us, okay, you're gonna travel to each of these different locations and you're gonna convince them to join us by burning down villages and killing people. I guess that kind of makes sense. So you pick one and you say, alright, this one's next. You go there, you help like 3 or 4 Vikings do Viking stuff. And they go, oh, we're gonna be friends forever, whatever, something. There's a little climactic thing at the end where you have to kill the general or the priest or whatever of that area. And then you go back, you pick a new area, you do the same thing. Sounds similar to Assassin's Creed 1? Yes. Is it devoid of any of the character that Assassin's Creed 1 had? Yes. You see, Assassin's Creed 1 didn't try to get you to like or fall in love with all these individual unimportant people that you talk to throughout the game. So you do all that, rinse and repeat until you're a high enough level to challenge the end game and watch a really, really long cutscene at the end, and that's it. And then you don't play anymore. Don't play ever. I'm getting kind of ahead of myself here because I haven't really talked about the story outside of the animus in this game, which is both pretty minimal and also batshit crazy. It only takes up about 55 minutes to an hour of the total runtime of the game. I don't think it's necessarily my place to comment about the real world story part because, like I said, I haven't played all the games and I feel like you kind of have to understand fully what's going on. Also, not gonna spoil the stuff that I did see because I understand that this game is still kind of new and maybe you still want to play it, so not gonna give anything too crazy away, but the real world stuff in this is kind of nuts and I kind of liked it. If I could offer an alternative, simply watch the cutscenes on YouTube and then take the 60 hours that you didn't spend playing this game and play something fun. Okay, onto the gameplay, which I was really excited for and extremely disappointed in once I started playing. Valhalla does present you with a hidden blade. You do get a hidden blade, even though you're not really an assassin. They just decide, oh, you can have this.
Mentor, I must protest. This is deeply unorthodox. Our wrist blade is a sacred...
Shut the hell up, bitch.
But you never really need to use it because just getting up in guards' faces and slamming the heavy attack over and over until they die is faster and more efficient. Sometimes assassinating people doesn't actually kill them either, it just does a lot of damage, which doesn't really make any sense. I'm pretty sure when you stab someone in the brain, they die. But hey, search me. You can parry enemy attacks if you feel like bothering, or you could just simply dodge to the side and keep swinging your weapon. The main problem is the game gives you all these different ways to kill enemies, but none of them get the job done as fast as just whacking them in the head over and over. Especially if your character's level is whatever the recommended level is for that area. Like if you match up with what the game says you should be, you will have zero trouble, at least on normal difficulty. Yeah, I'm sure if you crank the difficulty higher, it'll get harder, but I just played on normal because it's normal. You can unlock skills that let you tackle enemies and beat them to death, use exploding arrows, or charge into an enemy, pick them up, and throw them off a ledge if one happens to be nearby. The game's not really smooth either with the animations, the hit detection or anything. Sometimes you'll assassinate people and you don't even actually stab them. You just kind of stab away from them and then they die. Sometimes you'll do finishing moves facing the wrong way. Yeah, those are bugs, but it happened enough to where I felt I should point it out. The pikemen and other assorted heavy enemies are a little bit more difficult to fight. By difficult, I mean they take longer because every time you kill one of them, you do a kill animation that just wastes time. I mean, it's fine when, you choose to do the execution style moves, but it just happens every time you fight one of these guys, and it gets really boring, really fast. They did everything they could to waste your time. You can turn off the cinematic camera that activates when you do these, but you can't turn off the execution move. You have to watch it every time. Thankfully, it doesn't leave you open for an attack because the enemies in this game act like bad guys in a Bruce Lee movie and they just kind of circle around you until you finish. Is it still annoying to watch over and over? Oh yeah. Now sure, you could say Assassin's Creed 1's combat is also repetitive, and it is to a point. However, that game has the advantage of trying to be a little bit more realistic, so when you stab a guy in the head, they die. That's it. And then you move on to the next guy, and you counter his move, you kill him in one hit. It's fluid. It's fun. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Fighting in Valhalla is just predictable and boring. Again and again and again. The open world does have lots of things to do and people to talk to in it, but that doesn't make it fun. Climbing and exploring isn't really as fun as it used to because a lot of the areas that you explore in this game are just big, wide open areas. They're not complex cities with lots of buildings and tall towers and stuff like that for you to climb all over and run across. Riding your horse is fine. I mean, it's a faster way to get to where you're going, but it's not really fun. The horse has a stamina meter a la Ocarina of Time, so that's cool. For some reason, they felt the need to shoehorn in the longboats in this game, even though they don't really like add anything to the gameplay. There's a lot of long, winding rivers in the world, but there's nothing to really like do in them. And it's not like a pirate ship like in Black Flag where you've got cannons and stuff like that. It's just a boat. You just ride down the rivers in it. And when you do get into towns, they're really not that fun to explore because they're just a handful of mud huts and maybe, you know, a church tower, like one real building to climb up. Is this historically accurate? I don't know, I guess probably. Is it fun to play as a video game? No. Graphically, this game does look pretty good on higher settings, especially with a lot of the rolling hills and the wide open vistas that you can look at. However, I'm not here to look at vistas, I'm here to play a video game. Characters look okay when you're just kind of looking at them, but for some reason I think the facial animation budget from Odyssey didn't transfer over to this, because I watched a lot of cutscenes in Odyssey and those facial animations are fantastic. This game is kind of it's bordering on Mass Effect Andromeda levels. Watching two planks of wood talk to each other about Viking politics for 5 to 10 minutes at a time really is a drag. Music? I never really noticed it, honestly. I was never tapping my feet to anything. I don't know. I guess it's the title theme. I kind of remember the title theme, but it's pretty generic if I'm being honest. I'm not really going to talk about the DLC because I'm trying to just compare the main games of each game. Assassin's Creed 1 didn't really have any DLC. Not only that, but I'm pretty sure the DLC for this game takes place like in the past and in the future of the main story. I don't think any of it is directly connected to the main story. Is Valhalla a bad game? No. It's just long and middling. It's a perfect 5 out of 10. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just okay. And yeah, I'm aware, that's just my opinion. I see the Metacritic score, I see the review scores, I get it, okay? Just my thoughts. Personally, I feel like some people might be being a little too easy on it. I notice a lot of the video reviews from independent creators on YouTube tend to lean more towards my thoughts and feelings on the game, and bigger outlets tend to give it a pass and give it, you know, a 8 to 8.5 out of 10, which I think is insanity. And obviously people that are already die-hard fans of the series will probably find a lot of things to like in it. Assassin's Creed 1 is definitely the more enjoyable experience for me. It tells a neat, fun story about a young, snappy, dickhead assassin learning his place and, you know, kind of figuring out how the world works. It's fun to watch him put the pieces together and learn the truth about Al-Mualim and the Templars and the Apple of Eden and the other pieces of Eden. The gameplay does get repetitive in certain parts, and there is a bit of padding, but really I think the overall experience is enjoyable. The villains, particularly like I mentioned, villains are kind of important, and this game, even though you only meet them for 3 to 5 minutes, dude, I can't wait to kill them. Bonus points for all the Linkin Park AMVs that came out as a result of this game. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is just boring. It's stretched out. It's loaded with these copy-paste missions where you gotta go to some mud hut town and make friends with some random Viking that you'll never see 5 minutes after this mission. It's kind of just... It's just a big waste of time. The XP gain is pretty weak too. I feel like I don't level up quite as fast as I should for the recommended requirements for some areas. I mean, still didn't really have a hard time with the combat, but it just feels like something is off in terms of how fast you gain experience, as opposed to how fast it seems like the game wants you to gain experience. The skill tree progression is so slow, it crawls at a snail's pace. The amount of stuff that you get for each node that you unlock is so menial and meaningless. I would go 5 or 6 levels without realizing that I hadn't spent my skill points and then spending them all at once. That felt good, but spending the 2 every time you level up is just boring. It's slow. How many times can I describe this game as boring and slow? It seems like it's just a lesser version of a lot of looter games we've seen, even compared to Odyssey, which was the game that came before this one. The microtransactions in this game are just unforgivable. They are a crime against humanity. Whoever at Ubisoft greenlit all of this, I want you to suck on a sack of farts, because I hate you. Exploration is stale and totally unrewarding. The story is nothing but boring conversation after boring conversation with the occasional acid trip sequence thrown in there. Now, yes, some of those sequences do hold a bit of merit as they are tied to the larger plot of the game, which I'm not going to spoil again. Game's still pretty new, and I'm sure some people, even after watching this, are going to want to try it. The assassin gameplay is just pointless, really, with your bow and your melee weapon being just so much better and able to take out enemies so much faster. There's no punishment for not playing the assassin playstyle. None. So don't bother. It's like I said earlier, it's a perfect 5 out of 10. One step forward and it would be good. One step backward and I would just straight up call it bad. I really don't recommend that anybody buy or play this game. If you played Odyssey and you've been holding out, maybe for a price drop or something so that you can play it and at least get the story, don't. Just watch the cutscenes on YouTube. I promise you, it's a better experience. Now, do I think the series will ever top the best games like 2 or Black Flag or even Odyssey, according to a lot of people? No. The series is going live service, and really what I think that means for Assassin's Creed is it's going to be more bloated, more endless, stale. They're probably going to throw co-op in there somewhere, so they're going to have to balance everything out so everything is leveled to a T. There's not going to be any like fun left in the games. They're just going to be these lifeless, stale melee looter slashers, and it's not going to be fun anymore. They're probably going to rely on nostalgia, so they'll let you play as whatever assassin you want. Everyone's going to pick Ezio. It's like the Ezio skins they just added into Fortnite. There's a reason that nobody talks about Eivor, because half the people that have played Valhalla probably don't even remember their name. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you like this new format. I apologize that it took a little bit longer to come out than my videos usually do, but it's kind of what happens when you have to play 2 games for a video instead of 1. Don't worry though, the next video is going to be another dead game video, and hopefully it doesn't take as long to make. And hopefully that statement does not age poorly. Make sure you like and subscribe. And make sure you follow my Twitch over at twitch.tv/resetget. I've also got all my other socials down below in the description if you want to take a look at those. Trying to be more active and, more responsible with my different platforms to hopefully grow my audience a little bit outside of YouTube. And make sure you tune into the next video where a certain mythical city is about to fall before it ever rises. Stay tuned.